Before you continue watching anything else about health, stop for a moment because what you are about to learn could completely change how you think about everyday food choices and long-term health. There is something sitting quietly in kitchens and grocery stores right now, something extremely simple and inexpensive that researchers from top institutions like Harvard have linked to dramatic reductions in harmful internal inflammation, especially in adults over the age of 60. In some studies, the reduction has been reported to be as high as 60% or more when certain foods are used consistently in the diet. Yet most people overlook this completely, continuing to rely on expensive supplements that often deliver far less impact than real food. As a physician and researcher with decades of experience studying how the body changes with age, I can tell you that chronic inflammation is one of the most important hidden forces behind nearly every major age-related disease. It is not just about joint pain or occasional stiffness. Modern research from major institutions like Mayo Clinic and others increasingly connects chronic inflammation to conditions such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, and even the gradual loss of muscle mass that leads many older adults toward frailty and loss of independence. The most concerning part is that this process is silent. People often feel fine, while damage slowly builds inside the body over years. What makes this even more serious is that many common dietary habits actually worsen inflammation without people realizing it. Highly processed foods, certain oils, and long-term lifestyle patterns quietly feed this internal imbalance. At the same time, powerful natural foods that could help reverse this process are often ignored or misunderstood. In some cases, even the pharmaceutical world focuses more on managing symptoms rather than addressing root dietary causes. In this video, I am going to walk you through 5 of the most powerful anti-inflammatory foods supported by modern scientific research. We will go step by step, starting from number 5 and moving toward the most powerful food at number 1. Each one plays a different role in reducing inflammation, protecting organs, and improving long-term health. But I want to be very clear from the beginning. The number 1 food on this list is something most people already know, but almost nobody uses correctly. In fact, many people throw away its most beneficial part without realizing it, missing out on its full healing potential. Before we go deeper, I also want to connect with you directly. Think about your own health situation right now. Maybe it is joint discomfort, low energy, brain fog, or concerns about heart health. Whatever it is, keep that in mind as we go through these foods, because what you are about to learn is practical, not theoretical. Many people underestimate how much their daily food choices influence how they feel in their 60s, 70s, and beyond. Now let's begin with number 5, and this one often surprises people because it is something very simple and widely available: extra virgin olive oil. Many people assume they already understand olive oil and its benefits, but research shows there is much more happening at the biological level than most realize. High-quality extra virgin olive oil is not just a cooking ingredient. It contains powerful natural compounds that actively influence inflammation inside the body. One important study conducted by researchers at the University of Pennsylvania observed adults between the ages of 55 and 80 who consumed around 1.5 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil daily for several months. The results showed measurable improvements in brain blood flow, along with a noticeable reduction in inflammatory markers like interleukin-6. This is significant because interleukin-6 is one of the key chemical signals that drives chronic inflammation in aging bodies. To understand why this matters, you need to understand how inflammation changes with age. In younger individuals, the immune system activates when needed and then shuts down properly once the threat is gone. However, as we age, this system becomes less controlled. It stays slightly active all the time, even when there is no real danger. This constant low-level activation is what scientists now refer to as inflammaging, a slow, ongoing inflammatory state linked to many age-related diseases. Extra virgin olive oil contains a natural compound called oleocanthal. This compound behaves in a way that is surprisingly similar to ibuprofen at the molecular level. It helps block certain inflammatory pathways in the body. The important difference is that, unlike pharmaceutical anti-inflammatory drugs, olive oil does this without damaging the stomach lining or stressing the kidneys when consumed appropriately as part of a normal diet. Some laboratory findings even suggest that regular intake of quality olive oil can produce a mild anti-inflammatory effect comparable to a small percentage of a standard dose of ibuprofen, but in a completely natural and sustainable way. This is why populations in traditional Mediterranean regions, where olive oil is a daily dietary staple, often show lower rates of certain chronic diseases. However, one of the biggest mistakes people make is how they use olive oil. Many people heat it at high temperatures until it begins to smoke. This destroys many of the delicate compounds responsible for its health benefits. The most effective way to consume it is in its raw form, such as drizzling it over vegetables, salads, or whole grains. Another important detail is freshness. The antioxidant and anti-inflammatory strength of olive oil is significantly higher when it is recently harvested and properly stored. There's also an interesting synergy effect when olive oil is combined with other foods. For example, pairing it with tomatoes can enhance the absorption of lycopene, a powerful antioxidant. This combination has been studied for its amplified anti-inflammatory potential compared to consuming either food alone. As we move forward in this list, each food will build on this foundation of understanding how inflammation works and how simple dietary choices can influence it in powerful ways. Next, we will move into number 4, where the focus shifts from plant-based fats to a nutrient-dense food that plays a critical role in cellular repair and long-term inflammation control. Now that we understand how powerful extra virgin olive oil can be in supporting the body's inflammatory balance, it becomes easier to see a larger pattern emerging. Food is not just fuel, it is information. Every bite sends signals into your cells that either calm inflammation or quietly amplify it over time. As we move forward in this list, the next food operates on an even deeper level, affecting not just inflammation markers in the blood, but also the very structure of your cells and how they repair damage across the entire body. Coming in at number 4 is wild-caught salmon, a food that has been part of human diets in coastal civilizations for thousands of years. Long before modern science existed, people living near cold northern waters noticed something important. Those who regularly consumed fatty fish tended to stay stronger, more mobile, and mentally sharper into older age. Today, we finally understand why. Modern research from institutions such as the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine has followed thousands of older adults over several years to study the effects of fish consumption on inflammation and physical function. One large study tracking individuals over the age of 70 found that those who ate fatty fish like salmon at least twice per week had significantly lower levels of C-reactive protein, one of the most widely used markers of systemic inflammation in the body. In some cases, reductions were more than 40% compared to those who rarely ate fish. But the most interesting findings were not just about blood markers, they were about function. Participants who regularly consumed wild-caught fatty fish consistently performed better in grip strength, walking speed, and balance tests. These 3 measurements are now widely recognized in geriatric medicine as strong predictors of independence and long-term survival. To understand why salmon has such a powerful effect, we need to look at what is happening at the cellular level. Every cell in your body is surrounded by a membrane made of fats. These membranes are not just structural barriers. They control how cells communicate, respond to stress, and manage inflammation. The type of fat that builds these membranes plays a major role in determining how sensitive or resistant your body is to chronic inflammation. When the diet is high in processed foods and vegetable oils rich in omega-6 fatty acids, these fats become overrepresented in cell membranes. Over time, this makes cells more reactive and more likely to produce inflammatory signals. The body becomes stuck in a low-grade inflammatory state that is difficult to escape. Wild-caught salmon, however, provides a different type of fat, primarily omega-3 fatty acids such as EPA and DHA. These fats physically integrate into cell membranes and replace some of the more inflammatory fats. This change improves flexibility and communication between cells while reducing the tendency to trigger inflammatory cascades. This process is especially important after the age of 65. As we age, the body becomes less efficient at converting plant-based omega-3 sources into the active forms needed by the brain and heart. This makes direct dietary intake of EPA and DHA from fatty fish significantly more important than in younger years. To see how this translates into real life, consider the case of older adults who struggle with mobility and chronic inflammation-related conditions. Many of them experience gradual improvements in energy levels, joint comfort, and physical stability after incorporating fatty fish into their weekly diet. These changes are not instant, but they are measurable and consistent when the dietary pattern is maintained over time. One key factor that enhances the benefits of salmon is how it is prepared. High heat frying can damage delicate omega-3 fats, reducing their effectiveness. Healthier preparation methods like baking, steaming, or slow cooking help preserve these compounds and maintain their anti-inflammatory properties. Adding simple ingredients like lemon or herbs can further support digestion and nutrient absorption without interfering with the fish's natural benefits. There is also an important synergy between salmon and certain plant foods. For example, pairing salmon with leafy greens like spinach can enhance nutrient utilization in the body. Spinach contains magnesium and other micronutrients that support the enzymes responsible for processing omega-3 fats efficiently. This kind of food pairing demonstrates how inflammation control is not about a single ingredient, but about how foods work together in the body. As we continue through this list, you will notice a shift. The foods become not only more nutrient-dense, but also more directly involved in regulating the body's internal inflammatory switches. The next food, number 3, is something many people already enjoy regularly, yet very few understand its true biological impact on aging, memory, and cellular inflammation. And what research reveals about it is far more powerful than most people expect. As we move deeper into this list of powerful anti-inflammatory foods, a clear pattern is beginning to emerge. Each food is not acting alone, but instead influencing fundamental systems in the body that control aging, energy, and disease risk. We have already seen how healthy fats from olive oil and wild-caught salmon help regulate inflammation at both the cellular and systemic level. Now we turn to something far more familiar, something many people consume regularly without realizing just how deeply it affects brain function and long-term health. Coming in at number 3 are blueberries. At first glance, they may seem like a simple fruit, but modern nutritional science has revealed that blueberries contain one of the most powerful groups of natural compounds ever studied for aging and inflammation control. These compounds are called anthocyanins, the pigments responsible for the deep blue and purple color of the fruit, but their role goes far beyond appearance. Research conducted at leading institutions, including aging research centers in the United States, has shown that regular blueberry consumption can significantly reduce inflammatory activity in the body, while also improving cognitive performance in older adults. In controlled clinical trials involving individuals between the ages of 60 and 80, daily blueberry intake over several weeks led to measurable reductions in inflammatory signaling pathways, particularly those linked to NF-κB, a key molecular switch that activates inflammatory genes. To understand why this matters, it is important to look at what happens inside the aging body at the cellular level. One of the most critical changes with age is mitochondrial decline. Mitochondria are often described as the energy factories of the cell. They convert nutrients into usable energy that powers every biological function, from muscle movement to brain activity. As we age, these mitochondria become less efficient and begin producing more reactive oxygen species, which are unstable molecules that trigger inflammation and cellular damage. This gradual buildup of oxidative stress is one of the key drivers of aging. It affects nearly every system in the body simultaneously, including the brain, heart, muscles, and blood vessels. Over time, this leads to reduced energy, slower cognitive processing, and increased vulnerability to chronic disease. Blueberries help interrupt this process in a very specific way. The anthocyanins they contain can cross into cells and directly interact with mitochondrial function. They help neutralize reactive oxygen species before they cause damage, effectively reducing the inflammatory burden at its source. This is not just about symptom relief. It is about protecting the internal machinery of the cell itself. One of the most important findings in recent studies is that even modest daily consumption of blueberries can produce measurable benefits. In one well-known trial, participants who consumed approximately 1 cup of blueberries per day showed improved memory performance, faster processing speed, and reduced inflammatory markers within just a few weeks. These changes were strong enough that researchers described them as clinically meaningful, not just statistically significant. Another important advantage of blueberries is their accessibility. They can be consumed fresh or frozen without losing much of their nutritional value. In fact, frozen blueberries are often just as effective as fresh ones because the freezing process preserves the anthocyanins. This makes them one of the most cost-effective anti-inflammatory foods available, especially for people on a fixed income or those looking for practical daily dietary changes. There is also a powerful synergy effect when blueberries are combined with other foods, particularly oats. Oats contain a type of soluble fiber called beta-glucan, which supports the gut microbiome. A healthy gut environment plays a critical role in how effectively the body absorbs and utilizes the bioactive compounds found in blueberries. When consumed together, studies suggest that the absorption of anthocyanins can increase significantly, leading to stronger overall effects on inflammation and brain health. Timing also plays a role. Consuming blueberries in the morning with breakfast can support steady energy levels throughout the day, while also providing early antioxidant protection against daily oxidative stress. Some research suggests that consistent morning intake may also support better cognitive performance during peak activity hours. As we continue through this list, the foods become more targeted towards specific biological systems. While blueberries primarily support brain health and mitochondrial function, the next food works in a very different way. It directly influences pain pathways, inflammatory enzymes, and has been studied extensively for its ability to match pharmaceutical effects without the same side effects. Coming up next at number 2 is a spice that has been used in traditional medicine for thousands of years, but has only recently been validated by modern clinical research. And what scientists have discovered about its impact on inflammation is both surprising and powerful, especially for aging adults dealing with chronic pain and stiffness. As we continue moving through these anti-inflammatory foods, it becomes increasingly clear that some of the most powerful tools for supporting healthy aging are not found in expensive prescriptions or complicated treatments, but in simple dietary choices that have been used across cultures for centuries. We have already seen how olive oil supports vascular and brain health, how salmon rebuilds cellular membranes, and how blueberries protect mitochondria and cognitive function. Now we turn to something even more striking in its biological impact, a food that behaves in many ways like a natural pharmaceutical, yet comes from the spice shelf. Coming in at number 2 is turmeric, but not just turmeric in its basic form, and this distinction is extremely important. The active compound inside turmeric, known as curcumin, is what drives most of its health benefits. Without proper preparation, however, the body absorbs very little of it, which means many people are unknowingly consuming it without experiencing its full potential. Modern clinical research has explored curcumin extensively, especially in relation to inflammation and pain management. In studies involving older adults with joint discomfort and inflammatory conditions, curcumin supplementation has been shown to produce reductions in pain and inflammation that are comparable in some cases to standard anti-inflammatory medications. The key difference, however, is tolerance. While common pharmaceutical options can cause gastrointestinal irritation or kidney stress with long-term use, curcumin has demonstrated a much safer profile when used appropriately in dietary form. One important clinical trial followed individuals between the ages of 60 and 79 with moderate joint inflammation. Participants were given a standardized dose of curcumin daily over several weeks. By the end of the study, many reported significant improvements in pain levels and mobility, with measurable reductions in inflammatory biomarkers. These results highlight the real therapeutic potential of turmeric when it is properly prepared and absorbed by the body. However, there is a major challenge that limits turmeric's effectiveness. Curcumin on its own has extremely low bioavailability, meaning the body struggles to absorb and utilize it efficiently. Some studies estimate that less than a few percent of plain curcumin actually enters the bloodstream when consumed without enhancement. This is why many people do not notice strong effects when simply adding turmeric powder to food. Fortunately, there's a simple and well-researched solution to this problem. The compound piperine found in black pepper dramatically increases curcumin absorption. Even a small amount of black pepper can enhance bioavailability by a massive margin, allowing the body to actually use the curcumin rather than pass it through unused. This is one of the most important details in turmeric research, and it completely changes how effective the spice can be. Another critical factor is fat. Curcumin is fat-soluble, which means it dissolves and is transported more effectively when consumed with dietary fats. This is why traditional preparations, such as warm milk combined with turmeric, have been used for centuries in various cultures. These traditional methods were not based on modern science, but they align remarkably well with what we now understand about nutrient absorption. Inside the body, curcumin interacts with multiple inflammatory pathways, including a major regulatory system known as NF-κB. This system plays a central role in turning inflammatory genes on and off. When overactive, it contributes to chronic inflammation, which is linked to a wide range of age-related diseases. Curcumin helps modulate this pathway, essentially calming excessive inflammatory signaling without shutting down necessary immune responses. Another remarkable aspect of curcumin is its ability to cross the blood-brain barrier. This protective barrier normally prevents many compounds in the bloodstream from entering brain tissue. Curcumin's ability to reach the brain allows it to potentially influence neurological inflammation, which is increasingly recognized as a factor in cognitive decline and diseases such as Alzheimer's. Early research suggests it may help reduce the buildup of harmful protein aggregates associated with neurodegeneration. In practical terms, turmeric can be incorporated into the diet in several effective ways. When combined with black pepper and a source of fat, such as milk or plant-based alternatives with healthy oils, its benefits are significantly enhanced. This combination is often referred to in traditional practices as a golden milk preparation, though modern science now helps explain why it works so well. There's also an additional synergy worth mentioning. When turmeric is combined with ginger, another powerful anti-inflammatory root, the effects appear to complement each other. Both compounds act on different but overlapping inflammatory pathways, creating a broader overall impact on inflammation control. This is a strong example of how whole foods often work better together than in isolation. At this stage in the list, we are approaching the most powerful anti-inflammatory food discussed in this series. While turmeric is already remarkably potent when properly prepared, the final food operates through an entirely different biological mechanism. It does not just reduce inflammation directly, it activates the body's own internal defense systems at a genetic level, influencing hundreds of protective genes simultaneously. In the next and final section, we will look at number one, a food that many people overlook entirely or consume incorrectly, missing its full potential. What it does inside the body is so powerful that it has been described in research as one of the strongest natural activators of the body's built-in anti-inflammatory and detoxification pathways ever discovered.